In the recreational drug scene, fiend-based offenses are considered especially heinous. From snorting grandma's ashes because you're a broke cokehead degenerate to month-long Xan and alcohol-induced benders, these are their stories. What is up, my fellow degenerates out in YouTube land? How's your morning going? Afternoon, evening, nighttime? It is the homie Blurred Vision, and we're back with another storytime video. This time, we're going to be talking about the first time I ever got high. This story happened back in the summer of 2018. It was at the start of my drug phase, and we will be introducing a new location in this that will be coming up quite a lot. There are some very, very lit stories that I have to tell from this location, and that location is called the Sticks. And the Sticks was pretty legendary amongst people in my age group. It's where everyone kind of went to get high. People did a bunch of different drugs there. I know I smoked a shit ton out there, drank a bunch out there. You know, we would throw our bottles and break them out there. It was just a lit-ass place, and it's where a lot of stories take place at, so it'll come up a lot in my later stories. So to kind of give you a visual for what it looked like, it was this off side street with an entrance and an exit, and it went back into this kind of parking area. It was just kind of, I think it was where a building used to stand, but it got like leveled. So it was just a bunch of concrete back there. And then there was an even further back area that you had to take like an off-road detour to get to. And that's where a lot of people like had sex at, from what I understand. People would just go back there and hook up, I guess. I didn't really go back there that much. I just stayed in the first area because that's where all like the dope-ass graffiti was. That's, you know, just the easiest spot to get to. And all this was back behind like a bunch of trees. It was in this wooded area, so no cars could see you from the road. And very, very rarely did cops pull up there. But there are a few stories that I have about cops pulling up, and those are pretty lit to tell. One is where I passed out at the Sticks after getting way too high. I actually did that twice, and the second was there was like quite a few cars out there, and I think they just pulled up for some reason. But usually they didn't come out there, so it was a dope-ass spot where you wouldn't really get fucked with, and you could just get super messed up. So anyway, now that you guys have a kind of visual about what this spot looks like, I want to get into the actual story. So Coles comes to me, you know, after school one day, and he's like, yo, you want to get high with me and my girlfriend out at the Sticks? And obviously I was like, what the fuck is the Sticks? I had never heard of it before. This was my first time going out there. So he kind of explains what it is, you know. So after he kind of explains where it is and what it looks like, I agree, and this wasn't going to be the first time I smoked, but it was going to be the first time I was going to get high. The first time I ever smoked was back during school, and Coles took me out during lunch, and we basically just had this apple that we used, and I took a few hits on it, but I didn't really get high. I'm sure I didn't really know how to inhale properly, blah, blah, blah. I probably didn't get enough in my lungs to get high. So I was pretty hyped that he asked me if I wanted to go get high, because I really wanted to experience what it felt like. Because up to this point, I had really just been hitting nicotine at school. I may have drank. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I did drink before this, so I had that experience under my belt, but I was still very, very new to drugs and psychoactive substances. So anyway, nighttime comes around, and Coles pulls up to my house, and I just tell my parents, you know, I'm gonna go hang out with some friends, yada, yada, yada. They didn't really say much to me. You know, they didn't have any suspicions, really. Or if they did, they didn't really care. So I hop in Cole's car, and this is a pretty iconic car. We called it the Keef Mobile. It was this like really old Chevy. I can't remember what exact Chevy it was, but it was just a 4-door kind of sedan. And the reason we called it the Keef car, I mean, we didn't call it that at this time, but later on, once we like started smoking a lot more, We called it the Keef Mobile because he would drop so much weed in his car and it always just smelled like straight weed. So we ended up calling it the Keef Mobile. So we start driving out to the Sticks. The Sticks is probably 5 minutes away from my house. It's not very, very far. It's actually pretty close to an elementary school, which is kind of funny. You know, getting lit right next to an elementary school. I mean, it was at night, so no one was at the school, but kind of funny nonetheless. So on the drive over there, I'm feeling a little nervous, obviously, because I'm kind of preparing myself to have a state of mind change, you know, feel different. And that's always just a little nerve wracking to me for whatever reason, you know, the pre anxiety. And something really funny happened actually. So there's an entrance and an exit into these Sticks, and you really only want to take the entrance in and out because the exit, like the middle of the road, is like broken, like in its slanted upwards into the middle. So if you drive down that way, you'll like bottom out your car. And I don't think Coles had been out there that enough to realize that. So he drives into the exit and he bottoms out his Chevy, and you can just hear the scraping of the bottom of his car as we're driving through. And he stops at one point, and we get out, and he's like, "Oh my fucking god, I'm fucking up my car so bad right now." It was just hilarious at the time because we hadn't even gotten high during that point. Luckily, it didn't mess up his car, you know, bad. It didn't, you know, break anything. He just kind of powered through and then took a look underneath once we got parked. But he was a little salty about that. So now we're parked out at the Sticks and we're ready to smoke. And they already had a pre-rolled blunt. Then this was going to be my first time smoking a blunt, obviously. First time getting high, not my first time smoking, though, because the first time I smoked out of an apple. And actually, we would smoke out of an apple quite a lot in the early days because we couldn't really find someone to get us wraps. But this time, they did have a wrap. So Cole's GF at the time, we'll call her Paige. She whips out this blunt, and it's not like some fat thing. It's just kind of your average blunt. Um, at this point, it's not like any of us were like expert rollers or anything, but it wasn't like some wimpy or poorly rolled blunt. It was just average, you know. So she whips it out and she's got this big smile on her face because, you know, this is my first time smoking, and most people, when they introduce people to smoking for the first time, they're usually giddy. So her and Cole's were both kind of, you know, smiling, asking me if I was ready and whatnot. And I tell him, yeah, I'm down, I'm ready. You know, I was still nervous in the back of my head, but, you know, I'm not trying to portray that. You know, I'm trying to act all cool and whatnot. So they spark up this blunt, and, you know, they're hitting it first, obviously. They rolled it, they paid for the weed, you know. So they're smoking it a little bit, and then it gets passed to me. And we had gotten out of the car at this point, so we were just kind of hanging around the side of the car and smoking. So I take this blunt up to my mouth. I'm not sure exactly how I hold it. I don't think I held it all weird like or anything, but I take a nice big hit, and, you know, I probably coughed my lungs out. I can't remember exactly what happened, but, you know, virgin smoker lungs. So I remember in the early days of smoking, I would usually have slight coughing fits. You know, it would just be really harsh at the back of my throat. Eventually I got used to that feeling, but at the time, you know, basically every hit I took, I would, you know, be coughing a little bit. So, you know, I'd take one hit, probably cough a bit, take a second hit, cough a bit, and then pass it. And, you know, we're just chatting up a bit, you know, talking about stuff. I don't remember what, but, you know, we would always just be chatting back and forth, you know, joking around. You know, they're asking me how I feel. And at the time, I didn't really feel it. I would start feeling it later. I know it got passed to me a second time. And I think after the second time I did a few hits, I kind of told them, you guys can just keep smoking it. You know, I didn't want to hit it anymore. So they finished the blunt between them. It was probably halfway left at that point after I passed it back for the second time. So then we hop back in the car and just chill and chat for a bit. But, as we're chatting, I kind of start feeling almost like sick, kind of nauseous, but more like kind of an anxiety attack. And actually, the first few times that I smoked weed, I got major anxiety. But then, like, after, like, I think the fifth time smoking, I just like stopped getting that feeling and it would just kind of be relaxing. But at this point, like I had to like lay down in the back of their car. I would like throw some clothes over me. Like I was not feeling well. I don't know if that's because of the nicotine in the blunt or if it was just because I was so new to smoking weed. But like at that time, I was not feeling well. And I'm actually glad that I kept on, trying to smoke weed and whatnot because it eventually did get better. But like at the time, I just felt terrible. And I think one thing that added to the anxiety was, and happens for a lot of first time smokers, is you get that heartbeat, that really hard heartbeat. Like it just feels like you're having heart palpitations the whole time, and that freaks you out. You're like, oh, am I having a heart attack? Blah, blah, blah. You know, so anyway, after, waiting around for a little bit, we drive around and they're like, yo, you want to go home, so you can try to feel a little better. And I say yes. I wasn't feeling driving around and whatnot because I was just kind of anxious as hell. Felt like my heart was beating out of my chest. So they take me home and I lay down and probably just go to sleep. But yeah, that was basically my first time getting actually high. So let me know what you guys thought of the story. I'll have a few more stories out at the sticks. I remember we got hella drunk out there one time. We did some DXM out there, and quite a lot of other drugs, I think, too. But I'll have to think about it for a bit. But I love telling stories out at the sticks because it's just such an iconic place for me. It's where a shit ton of stories happened. I have a bunch of memories from there. But anyway, yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. It's been Blurred Vision, and I'll see you in the next vid. Peace.